Hi, everyone. I thought I lost my Zoom link, and so it took me a hot minute, but thankfully it's right at noon, which is exciting. Hi, Julie. Thanks for
Hello.
I
Hello.
don't believe Mike's able to join us today. Hi, Angela. Hi, Heather. And I know Sarah's coming in a bit, but we can go ahead and get started. It's snowing in Michigan also. I just want to throw that out there that
Oh, fun.
be any other weather, it would be okay. But it started snowing this morning. So we are doing
Pennsylvania,
chapter
there's only
3
a
and
few
4.
flakes.
I'm sorry, say that again, Julie.
Oh, I just said we're in Pennsylvania. There's just a few flakes right now,
Oh,
nothing major. It's very cold though.
I hope it misses you. Yeah, the temperature too. If it could just warm up a little bit. Just, I feel like it was warmer in February. We'd like to catch up with
Yeah.
that if possible. It would be nice. So we were supposed to read chapters 3 and 4 in the Art of Coaching Teams. And something I love about these town halls is that it's kind of an open forum and we can choose to talk about it and have fun looking into those chapters or see where the conversation takes us, which will be fun. So did anything strike you? We'll start with chapter 3, which is all about building trust. Did anything strike you while you guys were reading?
I have all kinds of things highlighted, but I have to look back because I
Yep.
just
Oh,
came
me
from one
too.
thing to another.
Same, which is why I was like, I lost my Zoom link. So yes, we're all just a little frazzled.
I like
thought-
the
Go ahead.
getting to know, like the list of getting to know you activities that it referred to in the index and different kinds and talking about how sometimes some of those aren't real useful, but that he, there were some in here that were different and nice.
Yes. Yes, like those traditional methods of building trust, like the human bingo or we just had a training come in, liberating structures is what they were called. So we had this guy come out and he is fascinating and has a lot of really great icebreakers or just connectors to get people started. But I found myself after the 4th or 5th time that someone had used the same connector, was like, okay. And this is not building trust. If anything, it's me saying, okay, you needed something to fill the moment, get us kicked off. Like we need to make
Right,
just jump in.
right.
Um,
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, you don't want to make people feel that way. It's no good.
right.
Yeah, a
Well,
waste of time.
and I know that she highlighted the process of thinking about what she does when considering what kind of connector to do to begin with. And I really appreciated that long list. There were a couple of different things. Okay. It's on page 45 under the get or the know each other. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
just it was nice to kind of think or hear the process, I guess, of someone else when they're trying to think of connectors. Cause I've gotten to points where I'm like, okay, do we really need a connector? Can we just jump in? Or do we need to just review what we did last time? And so having kind of a mindset of, what level of trust do we already have? Let's create opportunities for people to move when they're ready. Inviting sharing, but not putting tight constraints around what is shared. Creating something together, having some fun, and then connecting to what we do during that meeting and then that lightness part. So yeah, I don't think I've ever articulated what goes into developing the connectors and thinking about what we're going to do. So it's nice to kind of see that.
It's nice that she says about connecting to what we're doing during the meeting, because a lot of times it has nothing whatsoever to do during a meeting. So we were just at a coaching meeting and we did, it was like Family Feud, but everybody had put in advance about there were a bunch of questions, but they dealt with what we were going to be talking about that day. And so that was kind of nice because it was fun. We got to kind of talk to each other, but it also related. And I liked that. That was fun. It was a good one.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of getting everyone prepared to talk to the meeting rather than just jumping into it. But
Right.
still being kind of lighthearted so you can transition from what you were doing, get that mindset of just being willing to connect and collaborate with each other. Oh, that's
Right.
fun. What kind of questions, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of questions were asked ahead of time? Because I like the family feud idea.
Um, I'm trying to remember exactly. I think some of like, what's the most difficult part of being a coach? I can't remember the questions in
That's
particular.
okay.
Angie, help me out.
I'm not being helpful. You're
Help me
talking
out.
to one when we were at Duncansville.
Yes, and we did that Family Feud one, and she sent us a whole list of things in advance that we had to fill out. And when we were filling it out, like the list,
Yeah.
it was what's the most difficult thing about being a coach? What's the
What
most
could
rewarding thing about being a
right.
coach? Yeah,
But
and
I think maybe what could you change or
yeah, and when we
but
were
we
filling
filled
it
it
out,
out so far in advance. This is what I do not recommend. We
Okay.
filled it out so far in advance from the training that Julie and I forgot what we answered.
right? We're
Because
like,
it was like a
oh,
month,
boy.
it was a month lapse. And I'm like, oh my
Yes.
word, I totally forgot.
But
Yeah.
maybe so was it you're trying to think like find the top answer that was given, like
Yes,
a family feud
yes.
She
style?
did,
Yes.
yeah. So
And so
Maybe
she
that is the reason it was a month in advance, so you guys
it could
couldn't
be.
come in.
maybe, yeah, because they were like 4 answers, and she had a program. I wrote it down somewhere. I don't have it in front of me right now, but she had a program that she used, and yeah, and it revealed the answers. When people picked them, and so it was really a neat
Yeah, it
one.
was, yeah.
So,
Uh,
but when we were filling out the questions in advance, I'm like, this doesn't sound like a fun icebreaker.
right. Oh, what could you
I
change?
know.
What's the
But it
hardest
actually turned
part?
out to be,
Right.
yeah, it actually turned out to be okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In
it was fun.
reality, though, like I do love that those questions, I feel like sometimes people don't want to talk about the difficulties and the hard parts, the challenges, or
Mhm.
take that back. We want to talk about it, but we
Right.
want to like offload, not,
Right, yes.
oh, look, everyone's we're gonna collaborate because of it. And so that's interesting to kind of see what is everyone else thinking of, oh, look, if there's 20 of us here, the top answer, I said the same thing as everyone else, or oh, mine wasn't even on the list. And
Right,
there
right.
are others there. So yeah, that's a really nice way to bring that back. And again, build that trust, which is what this chapter is all about of okay, they see it too. Like I'm part of this community who's going through it. Oh, that's a cool idea. Love that. Have there been
Yeah.
other connectors that have helped build a sense of trust or have related to the meeting that you were going into? Something that stands out?
Mm, Not too much. I can't think of any other in particular. I just know
That's a good one.
that one really stood out. So it's a lot of times, a lot of times it is like the human bingo or whatever, and walk around and get
Right.
to know each other, and
And I
and
feel like that
that's
works.
sometimes helpful, but not that
Ri-
much.
It gets you up and kind of talking, but I found that human bingo is more of, hey, can you fill one out on my sheet? Like we're not sitting there saying, oh, I'm
Right.
Carolyn and I live in
Right.
Michigan and I'm
Yeah.
this many and I have two boys. Like it's just, oh, I know another
Right.
language here. I'll sign my name. And then you walk away and you never talk
Yes.
to them again. So
And
you
that's it.
defeat
Yes.
the
And
purpose.
That
that
is
Yeah.
does
true.
seem to be it. Mhm.
It kind of defeats that purpose. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's fun. Hmm.
I, I thought I wrote down the Family Feud game, but I think it was in the PowerPoint that they had given us.
I
And so it wasn't.
I just looked for it, Julie, and I just wrote Family Feud, but I remember she said she Googled it.
He was sending us a link, I think,
That's a
too.
nice,
It
easy
was going to
one.
be in the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And
Otherwise
she
I'd
said
share,
she
but I can't
Googled
find
it, and
it.
the problem
But she
she
said it
had
took a little while.
was, yeah, it wouldn't slide over, remember? Like the top so many.
Yeah.
Family Feud, they go by like that's the first one, that's the second one. She couldn't get the
Yeah.
slides to do
Right.
that with the program she did, but it was still exciting.
It was still good, yeah.
Yeah, it was still exciting. I mean, sometimes we have a supervisor that use jam boards,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
like with different questions and you put little sticky notes on.
Yeah.
But
I like using Jamboard on breakout sessions.
Oh,
Yeah.
And then you can monitor all
yeah.
the Jamboard. I learned that in building thinking classroom workshop.
I love
yeah.
it. Are you allowed to create new? Oh yeah, you can still make new jam boards. First, the longest time, and maybe I'll have to do my own Googling after this. They said that Jamboard was not going to exist anymore, that it was going away. And
I
so
think they said June.
oh, drat.
Somebody
Yeah,
told
somebody
me
did say
June.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
The person that used jam boards, our director. I
Yeah,
don't know.
has
I don't
anybody
have
used
any.
Miro?
I have
No.
not Miro.
Okay,
Mm-mm.
because that was suggested by my daughter, but I did ask the building thinking classrooms because he uses that a lot. That Peter Liltadal, what he would prefer, but he didn't respond. But I think he should talk to Google and say, why are you getting rid of this?
Right.
I know. So our AT department found Fig Jam. That's very similar. Yep. So Fig, FIGJAM.
Okay.
And there's actually a lot more options. So you can, highlight a bunch of the sticky notes and move them all as one instead of having to individually move every single one. So that
Okay.
was a fun one, and that
And then that's by who?
I don't know who makes it. Look at
Because Naomi said that if I can find the person in charge, that she would have a training in it.
I don't know. It's on figma.com. I'll show my screen in just a second.
Figma.com.
Thank
How
you.
does that compare to Padlet?
I don't know. It's similar. You can make it look like Padlet, where you can kind of create a header and then create sticky notes that go in it. I think it's more like Jamboard. I've only explored it a little bit. Our AT department's the one that's like
Oh,
gun.
okay. All right. Thank you for that suggestion. I really
Sure.
appreciate it. Did anybody look at that core values? I was gonna just look that up. The Elena Aguilar.com, and it had core values on page 41.
I didn't. Will you tell us more about it?
I don't know. I didn't
Oh,
look
you
at
didn't
it
get
either.
Oh, I thought you
It's
did.
been a busy week for me.
Agreed. I can pull that up too. So first, let me show you is this while I'm thinking about it. You can see all my. What are we seeing here? Are you guys
I
seeing?
think I actually printed it.
Oh,
I
there's
highlighted it, but I didn't go to it.
The facilitator core competencies? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, it's on page 41 up in the
the
top
core
box, number
values.
4.
Let me see.
Here, I'll bring those up.
It's on her on her site, her website.
Oh yeah, I did print that because I underlined it.
Okay, I'll stop
That's
sharing.
back when we had printing and
Oh,
capabilities.
yay!
Today, if you lose me, it's because we'd have no internet and I had to run a hotspot.
Oh, goodness
So I had to
gracious.
turn my video off because it pulls the bandwidth.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yeah, so what did you highlight or underline on that?
I just
the core va-
highlighted the website.
Oh,
And then I
Yeah.
went to the website and printed what I could.
oh, got it. Okay. I'm
Oh boy.
having
It
the
says not
hardest
secure,
time.
not secure, not secure. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh wait, I could keep on not
Here it
spelling
is.
it right.
Goodness gracious. More values. Pulling it up.
Come on.
Maybe. Although it's not, you would think it would be just right. Oh, core values. Oh gosh. Okay, I've got it.
Oh, okay. It finally
So
came
it's
up.
all of
Yes.
these.
Oh,
See, where is that? Where's it at now?
Wow.
get started or what?
I hit the search button on her website and just typed in core values. But it comes with a huge list, which is actually really nice because I feel like if you just gave people an open-ended identify your core values, I feel like that would, for me, would be the
Right.
brain lock of, "Ugh, I don't know. I don't know what
Oh,
I
I know. A lot
Um,
of the questions she had in there, I thought, boy, if I just was on the spot trying to come up with that, it would be
Yeah.
difficult.
But I think that goes back to something she said earlier in the chapter, which was we have to know who we are if we're going to be cultivating that culture of trust and being good leaders. So, but yeah, this is interesting. This actually would be fun. I have a group of educators that I supervise, and I think when we get together, man, probably not till August now, but maybe as a year as a way to kick off our school year. It'd be nice to go through these and see what words overlap and see what core values we're seeing across. This could be the family feud. What are the top 3 core values of our team based on those 3 from each individual? So yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Do you can you guys see yourselves using something like this or this activity with the groups that you're with?
Oh, every time I look up this, I get bright morning. I know.
Yes, that's Elena's website. The
Oh,
author's
okay.
website. Mm-hmm.
And then where's the search thing? I don't see it.
Up in the corner. So I'm sharing my screen right now. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
In the
Oh,
upper right.
okay. I see it. I see it.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
then it's down here for conversations with clients. Have you, has anyone had a chance to peruse these tools from the website yet? I have not. But
I did a little.
did you? Okay.
Yeah, they
Yes.
look really good.
Let's say anything
No.
stand out to you that you should be like, yes, do this. Cool. Oh, additional tools. Cool. All right. Well, I know what I'm doing later when I actually have a few extra minutes.
We were behind on, we missed the first weeks, for the first 2 chapters.
Yeah,
and so
we're just
we were
trying to catch up.
Yeah,
Oh. Yeah.
we were trying to catch up with all 4, so I didn't have time to look at the websites, just get the reading in.
That, yep, that's fair. That's how it was last week too, or 2 weeks ago. Where I was like, well, I read 1.
Oh, there's a
and
lot of
some
the
of 2.
podcasts and
Yeah, she has a lot on her website. Hi,
yeah.
Sarah.
Good morning.
Did you
Um,
find that under resources then?
So when
Or-
I searched it on her page, it came up. Now I have to go back. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was the 5th one down, coaching tools for transformation.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
you could go down 6, 7 to the art of coaching, and that's where all of the art of coaching resources are. Sarah, we were talking about, so first we talked about connectors and how they're not always trust building. They're just kind of time fillers. And then we started talking about core values. So Elena in her book has that website listed and none of us had the chance to go look at it. So we decided to look at it right now. And it's actually pretty cool. It has a lot of different words there. So if you ask someone, what are your core values? They don't have to think of them off the spot. They can just look at this huge list. I'm going to share it in the chat too.
Oh, cool.
There's that. Right. Fabulous. All right. So what else? So she gave a lot of other ideas for building trust. What other ones really stood out to you?
I think for me as
Listening. Right?
Listening?
I'm sorry, I'm not listening.
No, you're great.
Okay.
one of the things, Mary, like when she talked about listening and so many of the other things for me as I was listening to this or reading this, is the importance of leaders that were modeling all of these behaviors for our staff as well.
Mhm.
And I think that that is really big, that like you have to walk the walk to talk the talk. And one of Carolyn knows this, but one of my favorite authors, I'm rereading his book for or listening. Okay, so this is what I do. I go for a walk and I listen to his audiobook. But it's Brendan Burchard and the High Performance Habits. And one of the things that he talks about is how every time before he walks into a meeting, or just home to his family, he stops and asks himself, how can I serve the people that are in this room? And how do I need to show up? And for me, I think a lot of like, as I was reading, I was like, okay, there's another one. There's another idea. There's another way we can model trust. And for me, it's that idea of before we walk into the teams and the meetings that we're in is giving ourselves that time to reflect on how can we build trust? How can I model? How can I show up for this team in the way that they need me?
I love that. And that goes back to Elena's first key suggestion. Just even the first question of who do you want to be and who does your team need you to be? And so kind of I like that Brendan rephrases that as well, like how do I need to show up? Who do I need to really show up for? And I actually made not many sticky notes, lots of highlighter, but I did put my one sticky note on this page because I think something that I wanted to ask other people was how do we respectfully raise the voices of those who are staying quiet in our groups? So obviously we have lots of perspectives coming to the table. They're valuable. And I found myself in this exact scenario this morning on the receiving end where I felt like, I don't know if I should be at this table. I don't know if my voice is like so I'm a speech language pathologist by training. We were in a group with a lot of AAC enthusiasts and BCBAs, so behavior analysts. And I was like, I'm not a behavior analyst and I have my feelings and thoughts about that. And so I found myself getting really quiet. And so I'm wondering, when you notice as leaders, as coaches, how do you pull in these voices, but being respectful that maybe they genuinely don't want to say something at that moment?
So on page 54, Carolyn also knows this about me. I am notorious for saying like I'm not great at following protocols. But I highlighted that for me, like was that aha, that protocols allow for equitable participation. And for us to do this work or learning together, we need to ensure that we have everyone's voice. And so that was one of the things that like I notoriously am not great at following protocols. I don't love protocols because sometimes they feel very like black and white to me. But then it also helped me recognize that in some of those meetings, there is a place for protocols to ensure that all the voices at the table are heard. And Carolyn, to that same effect, you started your story by saying like, I wasn't quite sure like why I was there or if my voice was needed. And so then like I pull back to like, are we clearly as leaders articulating the purpose for this meeting and why your voice is necessary at that table? Like, are we showing you that I as a leader value what you bring to the table? Just my thoughts. I'd love to hear though what others, how have you guys done it? Like, this is how I want to do it going forward. I have not done this in the past. So now I know better. I'm going to do better.
Well, we could do like round robin, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean,
Yeah, that's an easy way that kind of allows everybody to have a turn and then they can say pass if they don't want to say anything more.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And then also understand the strengths of people and bring them out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this brings this, you have to kind of get to know the members in your team, right?
Mary, I think you hit it on the head. And I was just thinking that if if the group is, if that trust is already there within the group, then you can call each other out, right? Oh, Julie, you haven't really said anything about this. I value what your thoughts are. Do you have anything you want to add? But if it's not, if you still are building that, it does feel forced sometimes when there's protocols, or if you're just like, okay, Sarah, like you're quiet still, and then do you feel called out? Do you feel like you want to participate, or have maybe you tuned out and you just don't have anything to add because you don't know what the topic is? I've done that before. So yeah, I think that all comes back to building that trust and walking that walk as leaders too, to help
I,
cultivate that.
I think that, also, just like you said, not sure kind of why you're there, but, this is what I'm doing and this is why, being transparent about what the
Mhm.
group is about, why you're there, so that everybody knows what their role is, and she talked a lot about, the roles in all of this, and having those to be clearly defined and clearly defined agendas. So that kind of helps when everybody is sure what's going on and why they're there. It's easier to communicate about it than it is if you're unclear about what the purpose is of the meeting.
Right. Right.
And I think, Carolyn, like you mentioned, when we're building trust, like sometimes I don't feel like I can be vulnerable, like with my voice, because obviously you see my face, like my ideas go with my face when they come out of my mouth. So giving people choice too in terms of how they share their thoughts and their feedback. So sometimes I found with teams that I'm starting to work with, if we ask, hey, we're going to have a conversation about this, and it's something that's more complex, or maybe something that challenges thinking, like, hey, we're going to talk about how all students communicate and how all students can learn to read and write. And we always have people who are willing to like own up, like, yep, this is what I think. But then we found when we give the choice of like anonymously sharing your feedback in a Padlet or something that's not attached to your thoughts, sometimes like that's what starts that group like having that conversation. And so giving people, like, as we're starting to build trust, thinking about, if I'm somebody that's more of an introvert, how can I allow them to share their ideas without putting them on the spot? And that's the benefit, I think, of technology, is we can do that anonymously as well.
Yeah, though at one point it says, like the handwritten feedback usually becomes identifiable, because but I did like the idea of giving them the questions you wanted to ask for feedback at the very beginning. That way they could, write
Yeah.
notes about it as they went along and not forget what it is that they wanted to give you feedback on. And then you can gather some better information, I think, that way.
I think you're right. I think also with asking feedback at the end, everyone's so antsy just to get out of there that you're not getting the thoughtful feedback. Like, and some people do,
Right,
right? Some people do sit down and I'm going to make
right.
sure that I'm being
That's you.
really helpful here. But most are like, ah,
Yeah, this is great.
So,
Yep, they did all
yeah,
that.
you did great, you did great, you did great. Or yeah,
Right,
and that's not
right.
super helpful. Yeah, so I like the idea also of asking or just sharing, I'm going to ask these questions at the end. You don't have to answer all of them, but these are the ones you're going to hear again at the end. So
Has
Right.
anybody ever been in the Toastmasters meeting?
no.
Well, I'm a Toastmasters member, okay, and we have like three or four speeches, and then we have a whole section on evaluation of those speeches. So like we could maybe designate a few people to evaluate, give them, the last 15 minutes, we're going to evaluate what's been said. I don't know. It's very useful. And then we also write an evaluation for, for that speech, but we could write an evaluation for that particular area, that particular topic, and put it in. Somebody manages the notes, and then they send the notes out. If it's hybrid, or we have a hybrid. So
Okay.
we also
Yeah.
have people on Zoom, and then we also have people at the site. So we have somebody that manages the notes at the site. And then we also have something called a Zoom master that manages those notes. I mean,
So-
it'd be interesting if you guys just like attend one meeting. The name of our club is Hard Hats in San Diego. And but it gives you an idea of, we have time, everything's timed,
Mhm.
and so it's a very effective meeting where you just go through one thing and then, okay, now we do this, now we do that, now and everything's very timed. And so that then you get through what you want to do as far as the agenda goes, and it's a very successful meeting. So
What do you
Right.
typically speak about? I've never heard of Toastmasters, so I'm gonna ask you.
yeah,
I don't know
well,
what it
we
is.
have a theme for the day. Okay, so last week it was optimism.
Okay.
And then then we bring up business news at the beginning, and then the purpose of the meeting. We state the purpose of the meeting at the beginning, is to improve our speeches. Okay, improve our talking, improve our communication skills.
Okay.
And then we have like an educational happening, and so we talk about one topic, and one was today, yesterday, Friday was the audience, the responsibility of the audience to support the speaker, right? And then we have a Toastmaster that introduces each person as a speech, and then so the speeches, they follow some kind of program. It's called Pathways and Toastmasters. So they're speaking on the vocal variety or something like that, right? And then you bring in then that person decides what he or she wants to talk about, okay? And then you get a minute to evaluate that, and then you go to the next one. Okay, and then we have like table topics so we're talking about optimism, and then we say, what do you do in this situation? Blah, 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 blah. And so it's like spontaneous talking, right? And
Okay.
then we just do an evaluation. We have a general evaluator, and then to evaluate the entire meeting, how it went. And then we have, so that's useful too, if you have like a general evaluator to, what was good about the meeting, what was maybe we need to improve about the meeting, et cetera, et cetera. And then we
Mhm.
have 3 evaluators for the 3 speeches. And then we like have a quiz master. So this is kind of a fun thing where, one person's listening and jotting down and who said this and who said that and blah, blah, blah. And then we have a closing thought,
Hmm.
So, just the way it's set up. But I mean, you could get a lot of ideas how you could set up your meeting, because
Mhm.
it's very organized. It's very organized. It's very time. It's an hour and a half meeting. It's very time, you know,
Efficient.
you have to, we actually have a timer and a grammarian, so we put a green, yellow, and red,
Oh, yeah.
when, okay, your time is up.
Mhm.
I'm just explaining it, but
Mhm.
you don't want to do it you don't want to have a Toastmaster meeting, but you could bring those ideas into your meeting.
Well,
Right.
a lot of what you were saying takes us into the next chapter of chapter 4, talking about defining the roles and responsibilities of the people who are attending so that you know what your job is there. Not just, oh, I'm here because my voice is valued, but are you the facilitator? And here's what it looks like. Are you the timekeeper? And here's why we need a timekeeper. And here's what they do. Here, are you the recorder? And something I loved while reading this was that we need to make sure the recorder knows whether the expectation is that everything said during the meeting is written down or just the main decision and next steps. I'm one who just types everything and then I'll kind of group it and chunk it later. But I have worked with people who only write down main ideas and then I'm frantically like, but like, what else happened with that? So just making sure that everyone's on the same page. But Mary, something you started talking about was more of like the process observer or the process checker. And that's not something I've ever had as part of my team meeting. So I'm going to be exploring that a bit. Especially because in the agency that I work for now, talking and reviewing about our norms is the norm at all of our meetings. So we co-develop them as a group and then we refresh before, okay, remember, these are the norms. Here's what we're going to be doing. And so even just to circle back at the end of how did we do, not, oh, Sarah wasn't listening and I saw her on her phone or Mary had to step out, but kind of, you know, it looks like we're really following this norm really well. This one we could probably try to prioritize next time. But I think that's, makes it less personal, but still keeps it at the forefront of if this is actually important to us, we need to recognize that from an outsider, we're not doing these things. I thought that's interesting.
Yeah, I haven't read chapter 4 yet, so, okay.
It's
So
yeah.
one of the things I loved about chapter 4 is that she tied, like in my mind, she tied it back to all of the previous chapters when she said, and I wrote yes, because I feel like this speaks to how I like to run meetings or what my goal is. But I aspire to hold meetings that are focused, meaningful, and productive, but that they feed the heart, the mind, and the spirit. And for me, like that pulls in, like, I don't want to just have like an efficient, productive meeting. I want to have a meeting that leaves people feeling encouraged and inspired and excited to continue that work beyond that meeting. And so that for me, like when I read this, I was like, like, I think I'm going to put this like in my office. Because I think sometimes in education, we lose sight of that. Like we start to focus on like, okay, what do we need to get done? Let's just get these things done. But what I love is how she keeps pulling back like that purpose and the why we're meeting and how are we all connected and how is the work that we're doing connected to that deeper vision and mission of the organization that we're working for. And Carolyn, I love that you guys are co-developing those meeting norms and that you're reviewing them. And that idea of in chapter 3, how she kind of said, like at the end of the meeting, she asked some of these reflective questions, like, what were your biggest ahas? Like what worked for you in this meeting? What didn't work for you in this meeting? So not even just asking and like reviewing those meeting norms, but thinking like maybe do we need to adapt or change our meeting norms? Are they working for us? I don't know. Like I just feel like she is like my spirit animal. Like as I'm like yes, like I've had so many times today where I've literally written like yes in all caps with like 8 exclamation points. But yeah. That was a lot, guys. And if you can't tell, Carolyn knows because we worked together for like 4.5 years. I am a verbal processor, process things out loud.
And I am a visual, so I write everything down and process it and think about it before. So that's why we've always worked so well together, because then I just let her process as I take notes. Yeah. I think one of the big things when asking for feedback, and this is something that I've valued for several years, and I know Sarah has, again, with us working together, is not only just asking for the feedback, but actually making adjustments based on the feedback. And there have been so many meetings that I've been part of where, you know, we ask for feedback or we give them feedback and then we don't know what they do with it. Like, are you just trying to get a pat on the back? Like, oh, you did great today. But I think that's something, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've actually heard from teams say, oh, you read my notes, like you saw what my feedback was, you changed it based on. And so even, I know Elena wrote in this chapter, in chapter 3, about being concrete about what the feedback was, oh, I heard I did this, and so I'm going to really try not to do that this time. Let me know if I do that again. And I think part of that feedback piece is learning not to take it personal, that a lot of times they're just giving you the feedback that you asked for. And so you asked what went wrong at this meeting, I'm going to tell you, and not taking that as, oh, like they don't like what I chose. No, it didn't work. It was fine. It didn't work. But I know that took a lot of growing, at least on my end, to get into that point where feedback, now I can accept it. And there are obviously the ones that still sting, where you're like, okay, thanks. Didn't have to be so harsh. Didn't have to say it that way. But others are just kind of like, okay, like, yeah, you're right. I felt that was kind of long too. Or, oh yeah, you're right. Like it was lull. So.
I think some of that though, Carolyn, is the transparency piece that she talked about, like the owning our mistakes and being able to name them. It's showing the growth that, like, yes, I might be the leader, but I still have room to grow, and here are the areas that I'm going to grow in. And then I also love Brene Brown, and she talks a lot about like modeling vulnerability. And I think that's that other point, is that like when we can point out our own flaws, or we can share with people like, hey, I had this great plan, what I thought was a great plan, but you know what? It's not working. Like people don't seem engaged. Like, okay, so what could we do differently to help in this moment, versus like how many times have we gone through a meeting or a training where like, you know, it's a train wreck, but like everyone just keeps going through the train wreck together, instead of just stopping and saying like, hey, this isn't working, so let's have a conversation about what will. I think that also takes a culture beyond just trust, like a culture where like it's okay to admit that this isn't working out the way that we thought it was, and it's okay to pivot. That's hard to do in the moment.
And I
Also,
like, yeah.
about evaluation, and I'm going back to the Toastmasters again. It's kind of like a sandwich. So, you know, you're supposed to say, you know, oh, your opening was great. And then, you know, and then you say constructive criticism, and then you end with an optimistic ending. So, you know, you have to present that well, and so that, you know, the person can take the feedback constructively, because you're looking at both the strengths and the weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Mary, that I actually sent this to my husband. He's the school resource officer. And so her statement in here, and I don't remember what page it was on, but about how we need 5 positive like interactions with people for every one like constructive or
Right.
negative.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. And it's not just for kids, it's for like how we interact with each other. I am somebody that's really big on relationships and building that sense of trust. And so having people who are willing to say like, hey, how was your day? But like where you know they actually mean it, they're not just doing it to be friendly.
Right.
Julie, what were you gonna add?
I was just gonna say, you talked about the, you know, talking through like if it was a train wreck and whether what can we do differently? And I was in chapter 4, you know, she talked a lot about how a lot of schools or districts or programs, they adopt program after program or initiative after initiative and never truly hang on with one, and it gets so frustrating. And then she talked about, you know, sometimes maybe instead of setting specific goals, to have that inquiry project is what she talked about. And I like that because I see, you know, in our program, Angie and I are in early intervention preschool, and we're coaches, and we see that all the time. We program after program, initiative after initiative, and we see the teachers getting very frustrated with that. And I think, you know, the idea of the inquiry project to, you know, get the information from the teachers, what,
Mhm.
it could be like that Family Feud, what is it that you find, that's really working for you? What is it that you find, really motivates you to come, to work every day? And then, what are the things that you think, needs something? And then to do an inquiry project based on that, I think would be very useful for us to kind of get a better handle on where we are and where we need to be, because it would be difficult for us to make specific goals at the moment because nobody
Mhm.
knows what goal we
Right.
need.
Mhm.
So I like that. I liked about that, inquiry project, and that kind of hit home with the program after program. So, yeah. And instead of just abandoning it every time, what worked about this, what parts of this are good, and can we tweak it in some way to make it work without just abandoning it? So, yeah, like that.
And Julie, what I hear from you is a lot of asking better questions and just staying curious longer instead of making assumptions. I think sometimes we tend to do that where we make an assumption, or we get a limited number of voices at the table that all think the same way. And then we're like, oh yeah, here's the next program that's going to solve all of the issues that we have.
Right,
But we haven't stayed in that inquiry process long enough to really understand the full scope of what we're talking about.
right, or get any kind of data on it, or, anything. It's just, yeah. You say stay curious longer. It's Michael Bungay Stainer read here. I love that. I love him. So,
Mhm.
And so like today, this morning, as I was reading through this, the one thing that I kept thinking is we need to slow down. Like a lot of what she's talking about takes time, and we tend to because it's such high stakes, like we run into the burning building and we're just trying to grab resources. And as I'm reading through this book, all I keep thinking is like we need to intentionally pause and reflect and think, and how are we interacting with people, and what is the result of that interaction? And so when she keeps talking about building communities, that takes time. And so for me, I'm like, I just need to slow down. Like I need to take a deep breath sometimes and slow down and recognize that this is really meaningful work. And it's going to take time to build those relationships, to build that trust, and to really, Mary, you brought up listen, to be able to listen to all stakeholders. I'm not great at going slow, guys.
I think it's
Even-
important to recognize that, right? I think in a lot of these things, as I was reading, I was like, oh, I could have done that with my team. Oh, we probably would have had a different outcome for X if I would have done this instead. And so I think part of this role with being group leaders or coaches or admin or teachers or speech path is having that ability to reflect and think about what we have been doing and what we could be doing differently.
Angie and I were saying that we would like our administrators to read this book.
As an administrator, I will say it has been very helpful. Like,
Yes, I think so.
yeah.
We are not administrators, and lots of times we can't make
Yeah.
the
Right.
decisions on.
Yes.
Well, we're in that stuck in between kind of she even talked about
We
that.
talked about that. Yeah.
She
Mhm.
talked about that
Yeah.
in there, that, they think of you as being administrative when you're a coach, and you're kind of just sort of stuck there because they're not quite sure how to accept you anymore, because you're not necessarily doing the same thing in the classroom and with them anymore. So, yeah, it definitely makes a difference.
Yeah. I will say the middle admin is also stuck in that spot where it's up to me to make
Oh, yes.
decisions. And then I'm like, hey guys, can
Right.
you give me some guidance? But yeah,
And we see that too with our, supervisors and the people above them.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
In this position, you kind of see all sides, and
right.
Do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure. I love that. So were there any takeaways from these two chapters that you were like, I'm gonna start doing that immediately? Were there any things that really stuck out to you from these two?
Um, I'm gonna be less negative and be more, try to be more inspirational.
Yeah, love that. Okay.
But, I just feel like I'm in occupational therapy and I'm just like, we're firefighters. And it's like, I don't want to be a firefighter anymore.
Mhm.
I want to go beyond that.
Mhm. Build in the fire extinguishing systems
Yeah.
so that we don't have to go and put them out all the time. Sure. Um,
I
oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I really am finding like the appendix, like the resources that she's sharing in there as things that like I keep putting in the back of my head. Our team is relatively new in working together. We have 3 new people, so our team is 4 specialists, and 3 of the 4 are less than 8 months. So for me, a lot of this book, like, yes, I could put that in my back pocket. One of the things that I think is overwhelming, but also great, is that she gave us 14 ideas for how to build teams. And that's 14 is a lot. But as I started reading through it, I started to reflect on how some of these might work better for some teams and others for different ones. So like I started taking notes on like, here are some things I think would be really great for these teams in terms of building trust. Here are some things that I think would be others. And then I'm going to start asking the questions that she suggested in terms of feedback at the end of meetings.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah.
That would be something I'll do also. Mhm.
And then acting on it, right? That I'm not just going to ask
Right.
the questions, and then giving people choice of how they'd like to respond.
Mhm.
What about others? I feel like I just want to make an action plan of this whole book.
Well, I agree with getting that feedback. I also want to be able to ask more pertinent questions to get input more. Sometimes, as far as working together and the input top down, tends to be everybody's told what to do and they sometimes tell them they're going to have input and they think they might have input and then it doesn't really work that way, so just working on, at least from our level anyhow, of
Mhm.
asking the right questions, getting that input, responding to it, and, creating our goals or inquiries, around what's important to, the team as opposed to what's just important to somebody at the top. So
Mhm.
that,
Yeah, I love the oh, your input's really valuable, and then none of that goes into the consideration of what happens beyond that. Like they collected it, they checked the box saying, oh, I said I would collect everyone's input,
yeah.
but they go with their own thoughts anyway. Yeah, I'm
Right.
trying not to do that now. That is, now that I have that opportunity to change that, trying not to. So I'm relatively new with my team. I joined at the end of July. And so this has been our first school year working together. But I'm going to be looking into exhibit 4.2, which is developing a team's mission and vision, and seeing like how do my teachers and teaching assistants and ancillary providers see themselves as fitting in with the larger mission of our school district, and then seeing if we need to set any specific norms or making sure that our core values are heard amongst the team. So that is something that I'm going to be prepping for, so that it's thoughtful and not just throwing a connector to throw a connector into the mix. We have
Where's
got-
Livingston? Your
It's in
services?
Michigan.
Oh, in Michigan.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
I used to live in Gregory, Michigan.
Okay.
Great.
So we have Howell, Fowlerville, Pinckney, Brighton, and Heartland in our county. So kind of like lower middle.
Mm-hmm. I know. Mhm.
I'm showing everyone else on my Michigan map. That's like,
Do you,
Yeah.
do you work with, the AT group?
I do.
You do?
I do. Yeah, they're
I mean,
fast.
the Michigan AT group?
Yeah, there was a lunch and learn this morning. I know that's where Sarah was before joining us
Okay,
today. Yep.
great. I love
Yeah.
Noelle Pelasti on math.
She
She's really
is,
good at math.
she's retired.
So she retired.
Oh, she
this summer.
retired.
Mhm.
That's
Oh,
why we had 3 people and Carolyn was my counterpart. And she left and then Noelle retired and now we have 2 new phenomenal math specialists. And then we also have a new AT-AAC specialist who is equally as awesome and also named Carolyn.
She's fabulous.
oh, cool. Yeah, I'm moving to Michigan in August, but
Awesome.
all the way up into Alanson. It's kind of by the bridge
Oh,
by
yeah.
Petoskey.
Yep. Turn
Very
away. Great. Any other final thoughts? We've got about 5 minutes left. I'm also going to try to read the next chapters before showing up to our meeting and
Is
not like
everyone
an
from
hour
Michigan
before.
here or what?
So, Angie and I are from Pennsylvania.
Oh, Pennsylvania, okay.
Yeah.
I worked for somebody there too. But it was Michigan Charter Academy.
Oh, yeah.
But the person was in the company was in Pennsylvania. Devon Healthcare.
I'm in Pennsylvania too. Sorry,
Yeah,
I've been
where
in
in
and out. I've
Pennsylvania?
been trying.
Hi,
I've had
Heather.
things to multitask. So yeah, I'm in Pittsburgh area actually.
Okay.
Around
I'm in
Pittsburgh?
Johnstown, so about
Pittsburgh.
2 hours from
Okay, yeah,
Pittsburgh.
not far.
Angie's in Bedford.
I know Erie, Pennsylvania does a lot with autism, but I don't know if you guys do a lot or not. But
Angie, I just want to throw out that I loved your quote that you threw in the chat.
Mhm.
Like, yes.
Sorry, I can't talk too well because my internet's all messed up.
Right. No, it was perfect that you threw it in there. I was like, yes.
It's a good one.
It is
Yeah.
great. So
Well, I hope that we'll see you. I think 2 weeks is the next one. I know that there's another AT town hall next week, but then our next
I think
teacher.
The
Oh,
week
there's one
after
next
Easter
week?
Monday.
Yes, as in say, yeah, we're not.
So
It is kind of wonky with Easter break.
So not the next 2 weeks, it's the week after. The
so
week
it's
after
April 8th, right?
April 8th, yeah.
April 8th.
But
I'll
did
go
you
with
say
that.
there was another town hall next week?
Maybe. I don't really know. I don't.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to ask Mike. I don't work here.
yes, you're right. It is April 8th.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Great, we have like extra time to read.
Very
You would think that would help, but I
You
feel
would
like
think that
it's
would
just gonna
help, I
push
know.
me right until the morning of. Ah.
I was reading all day yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Oh my.
Well, thank you everyone for
All right, thank you.
popping in. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks.
All right, let's see
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Julie,
Hey,
do we have
hi.
another meeting?
We do.
We have At
With
2,
that-
I have to go be in a meeting with Julie Della now about summer programming, so I have to go.
Oh, why?
I don't know. She called this meeting for the Bedford people for summer. I don't know
For
why.
Bedford, okay, because I didn't hear anything about it, but
Here,
okay.
here I am.
All right, well
okay,
then,
bye.
see you too.
Hopefully, I'll try my hardest.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.